Thanks very much, Aaron, and everybody else who's reading, and to everyone involved in Broken Sleep. I'm really pleased to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. Um, this book, Free the Beast, is they're poems that were written over 10 years, but really they're poems that go back a long time for me. As a late teenager and in my early 20s, I was put through reparative therapies and exorcisms to get rid of the gay devils in me. And for a long time, I suppose I just needed to survive and then forget. And those were necessary things. And about 20 years after the very first exorcism, first public exorcism, I began to think, what could I do with these in poetry? I felt far enough away from them at that stage to begin to think in form. And yeah, so here I'll read some. This poem's called, the first one's called The Butcher of Eden. I was always intrigued by that text in Genesis chapter 3 where it says, God made Adam and Eve coats of skin and dressed them. You can't make a coat of skin without a bit of butchery. The Butcher of Eden. And when he was finished, he scraped fat from the backs of stretched skins, wiped the blood, sewed the seams, bit the thread with teeth, and said, dress yourselves in these. And they said, what is this verb? God shoved his knife into the earth and said, it's like make-believe, but for your body. They looked at all the meat still steaming from when it was alive. God said, eat, and watched while beasts of Eden fed on beasts of Eden. So at the center of this book is a sequence of sonnets, half a corona of sonnets called Seven Deadly Sonnets, and they're about some of the exorcisms, and I'll read a few of those. This one is called The Exorcism. The first exorcist that I had was from the country of California, so hence the reference to Americans in this. The Exorcism. I wish you weren't American. I wish you didn't see intrinsic evil in me. I wish you hadn't dragged my secret from me. Now I know you knew already, someone squealed. I wished you didn't put your hands on me while you were screaming at the devils in me, all my homosexualities. I wished you'd never gathered people round, instructing them to pray in tongues or read from Revelations or chant, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I wished you'd shut up. I repeated, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I wish he'd answered. I wished you dead. And I was frightened at the violence in me and the nest of demons in me. I wondered where they lived. In my semen? In the dreams I had of being kissed? Why did they breed in me? My God, my exorcist. I benefited from a school curriculum that was very heavy in poetry. We were learning poems, two poems off by heart, one in English, one in Irish, from the age of 5 to the age of 17. And I just went to a very ordinary school, just the local village school, nothing fancy. So that really benefited a literary education. So one of the ones we studied, one of the sonnets we studied, which lots of people might have done, is Shakespeare's sonnet 130. My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. So here's a poem about one of my exorcisers. He did some exorcisms on me. He did an exorcism on me when I was 12 about the gay devils in me, and then years later he was my reparative therapist. And this poem is called Volta, and it's after Shakespeare's 130. My exorciser's eyes were nothing like the sun. They had no fire. If twisted be the language bad priests speak, his tongue was like a lyre, sweeter than the Eucharist. If hate be harsh, why then his actions felt more tender than a father's. I have heard the furious from the pulpit. This man's work was quiet as abuse. I loved the promises he made. They wound around my heart with knots of wonder. I have heard of charlatans who charge. I swear he would have paid me from my custom. His rates were reasonable and his burdens subtle. Some terrorize, he Christianized. I swear to you his heaven rhymed with hell. I know he'll claw his way to glory. Me as well. Many years after I got away from reparative therapy, I was giving a poetry reading at this very, very queer bookshop in Melbourne, in Australia, where I was living. And like there were dildos and sex manuals and Tom of Finland comics and posters for support groups up everywhere. It was a very queer, very avant-garde place. And I was about to start the poetry reading and I looked up and there was one of my reparative therapists in the crowd, standing there holding the hand of a man, another man who clearly was his partner or husband. And it made me think of the ninth circle of hell in Dante's Inferno. In the ninth circle of hell, Dante and Virgil get down and they see Satan frozen in a lake of his own tears. And the line translated by Longfellow is, "Oh, what a marvel it appeared to me." So this is the final of the Seven Deadly Sonnets. I'll read one more poem, or maybe two short ones after this. This one is called, "Oh, what a marvel it appeared to me." I knew it was him as soon as I saw him. He saw me too. I was curious if he'd changed. I like to believe people do, eventually. 10 years since he'd made me account for what he called homosexual erections in weekly sessions he called therapy. I've got plenty of obsessions, but he's not one of them anymore. All it took was time and safety. 5 years? 20? I don't know how I made it through. When I saw him, I gave him what he said God gave me. Silence. Opportunity. I have worked for a long time in conflict resolution, and one of the things that strikes me is that the relationship to the self is in deep conversation with the relationship to conflict. So here's a poem called How to Be Alone. It all begins with knowing nothing lasts forever, so you might as well start packing now. In the meantime, practice being alive. There will be a party where you'll feel like nobody's paying you attention, and there will be a party where attention is all you'll get. What you need to do is to remember to talk to yourself between these parties. And again, there will be a day, a decade where you won't fit in with your body, even though you're in the only body you're in. You need to control your habit of forgetting to breathe. Remember when you were younger and you practiced kissing on your arm? You were onto something then. Sometimes harm knows its own healing. Comfort knows its own intelligence. Kindness too. It needs no reason. There is a you telling you another story of you. Listen to her. Where do you feel anxiety in your body? The chest, the fist, the dream before waking, the head that feels like it's at the top of the swing, or the clutch of gut, like falling and falling and falling and falling. It knows something. You're dying. Try to stay alive. For now, touch yourself. I'm serious. Touch yourself. Take your hand and place your hand someplace upon your body and listen to the community of madness that you are. You are such an interesting conversation. You belong here. I'll finish with a very short poem. This is a little prayer. This is the last poem in the book. I wanted to think about what it would mean to address the you that is the God that I used to try to believe in. This poem is called May Their Children's Heads Be Dashed Against the Rocks. Pleasant little title with which to finish. I swear all my life I've needed violence and prayer. and in order to survive this little hell, some necessary sadness, carrying it, causing it as well. So in strange gratitude, I turn to you, O breaker of a universe or two. O silence at the heart of the terrifying question. O shaper of the fundamental flaw, with undeserved respect for all you saw and didn't do, for all you never said, for all that you did not make new. Thanks very much, everybody. Thanks, Aaron.